Welcome to the Devy Devotional Podcast, a show devoted to college prospect evaluation with a fantasy football focus. With your hosts, John Arrington, Aaron Wilcox, and Andy Starr. This podcast brings you actionable strategies and player-driven analysis for your Devy, C2C, and Dynasty leagues. Let's dive in.
Let's dive into hot takes. Welcome to the Devy Devotional, where we stay devoted to Devy. I'm your host, John Arrington, and tonight we are doing one of our favorite pods of the year. That's right, it's finally back. It's the Hot Takes pod, where we go crazy, making some of the wildest calls that we can. And here's the thing, a lot of times they are right. A lot of times they end up being prescient and becoming true. So that's why it obviously it's a pod where we have a lot of fun. We joke around. We maybe hate on some players we hate, love on some players we love. But in the end, we try to have some kind of realism and everything with the pod. I can't do it alone though, so I gotta bring on Andy Starr and Aaron Wilcox. And are you guys pumped? Are you guys ready for tonight? Aaron, it's been a little bit. You had some technical difficulties before that. I think we got you back. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, I believe I am back. We figured some things out on the technical side and the laptop side of things. So thankful for that. And I always look forward to the Hot Takes podcast. Every year we do it, and we've had some recent successes there too. So that's always nice to see. So yes, excited to do that with you guys. I brought in quite a few today. I don't know, maybe if I'll be able to throw out all of them, but hopefully we'll get in a lot, I'm sure.
Last year, I think Aaron ended up coming. In the past, I've said, "Hey, you didn't bring enough heat. You didn't bring enough," and I think Aaron had like 6 or 7, maybe 8 hot takes. So we'll have to see how many he has this time. Andy, I think you said you were struggling this year, but hopefully you have some spicy ones at the very least.
Yeah, you guys really killed my confidence last year. I thought that I had some good takes, like especially with the Mekhi Hughes one. But no, we all agree he sucks, which was great, But I think my confusion was like hot takes versus consensus versus hot takes versus the brilliant minds on this podcast, which is hard to do. So to get that Diablo, you really have to to remind everyone of our grading scale. We use the Taco Bell sauce packet scale. So mild, hot, fire, Diablo. To get a Diablo, you really have to almost just throw yourself out on a limb and really beg to be wrong at some point during the season. But I think I have at least one where I can get this Diablo fired up. But yeah, it was definitely hard to try and find things that are really interesting. I definitely wanted to get a few mild hot takes in there as well, just to remind the people of a few things that I've got my flag planted in along the way.
The funny thing is, I went back and listened to last year's pod, and the funny thing is, like, you guys called most of my takes mild. You said that this was the most mild I had been of all the hot takes pods and everything. And the funny thing is that most of them ended up being wrong. It was actually, you guys called my stuff mild, and yet, I mean, now we can say wrong, I said Kenyon Sadiq, or I'm sorry, I said that Dendell Boston was going to be a day 3 pick. Obviously that didn't end up happening, but he ended up falling out of the first round, which a lot of people were expecting at the time. So he did fall, maybe not as far as I said, but you guys agreed with me. And so there's things, but getting into, like I said, I listened to last year. We had some that went really wrong. We had some that we got kind of right, and then we had some that ended up being amazing calls. And I'll give you guys credit, because I would like to say that I took the cake 2 years ago on the Hot Takes pod, but I believe that you guys were the true winners of last year's Hot Takes pod, so I'll give you that. But the sum that we got really wrong last year, we're all gonna have to take our lumps here. I picked one for each of us. Andy, Nico Iamaleava will succeed in his new offense and be back in the first round draft capital conversation. Do you have any comments on that one?
No, I kind of knew this was coming though, because I do remember making that call. Uh, I don't. There's nothing. All I could say is Nico. Like I gave you one more chance. I tried to extend the olive branch, even though I'd kind of like, been an anti Nico guy most of last offseason. I was like, okay, let's see. I'm not like all the way out on him, but it didn't work out. And I'm not sure it's all his fault because UCLA just altogether kind of sucked, but it didn't work out, and I don't think it's going to work out this year either. So he won't be on my hot takes for 2026, unfortunately for him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of going along with that, I'm going to go ahead and take my lumps here. I said that Javian Thomas, also on UCLA, on the same exact team, was going to be a top 5 running back in the 2026 draft class. I will give myself a little credit. The 2026 running back class was not. I'm always saying, hey, it's really ambiguous, it's really open. But Javian Thomas is not a top 5. In fact, I wouldn't say he's top 5 anything at this point after running for 294 yards last year at a 3.6 yards per carry clip. So yeah, not my best take ever. Um, there's exciting things in his profile. He had 100 rushing attempts for 626 yards the year prior.
John froze out on us for a second, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Aaron, if that was just me or if John is.
We all got to take our turns
Which,
on the podcast, though, right?
I mean,
sometimes it's me,
it's so
sometimes you.
crazy. Yeah, sometimes it can never be all three of us with everything working properly. But I think what John was going to say was that Javian Thomas's arrow was pointing in every direction upwards until whatever happened last year at UCLA. And yeah, I think I was a victim of that with the Nico Yamalieva call, and Javian Thomas was no different. And, he's still there at UCLA, I believe, and believe it or not, still getting like a little mild CFF love this year. So there's still hope for both of those guys. I just don't happen to have any.
I think Javion's pretty dead at this point, unfortunately, just because of the transfer they brought in and everything, and that's fine. I mean, John, if he's not cutting out, I thought he was maybe going to cut out and spare me any humiliation of one of my takes from last year, but we'll see.
Am I back? Can you guys hear me? Hopefully.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool. Aaron's I don't think is as bad. It's still pretty bad though. I think it was just because it wasn't as hot of a take, and that's why it doesn't seem as bad. But Aaron was Damon Claiborne will rise to a day 2 RB in the NFL draft. Damon Claiborne was terrible last year and was a 6th-round pick in the NFL draft. So not as bad as Javian Thomas is a top 5, and Nico I will be in the 1st round and all that kind of stuff, but not as hot. Aaron's worst take of the pod last year. Some we got kind of right. These are kind of like mixed. Aaron said Kenyon Sadiq will have 1,000 yards receiving and will be draft class. Like, okay, he was definitely the tight end one, whether he should have been or not. I mean, obviously the athleticism's there, the everything, everything looked really good as far as the combine and all that kind of stuff. But he had 580 receiving yards in 14 games, so.
Felix in the comments saying if we need a host, he's around. Which I mean, we may have to put the light the signal fires here shortly because John is cutting in and out yet again, and I know this frustrates to him to no end. but yes.
Oh, this is bad.
But to talk about Kenyon Sadiq, you're right. He was the consensus tight end one, whether or not we agreed with it or not. So I think that, half of that take was obviously right. The 1,000 yards was always the part that I think both of us thought was never going to happen, which is why I think I may have given it to Diablo just because I thought there was no way Kenyon Sadiq was ever going to get 1,000 yards, which of course never happened. But yeah, I mean, half the take was correct. So uh, nothing wrong with that call. Even though I do think Eli Stowers should have been the tight end one, but that's debatable now, especially with what we're hearing from Philadelphia Eagles camp. Whether or not they're right about Stowers remains to be seen. But I don't want to get off on that tangent.
All right. Well, I see that I keep reconnecting and disconnecting, so I have no idea if you guys can hear me or not. If it gets really bad, I might have to put myself in the background and let you guys host. Unfortunately, even though this pod especially, Raphael will be a top 3 running back in the ACC for PPR points and rushed for 1,000 yards. I'm giving this one a close enough. He was 4th in the ACC, not 143 yards.
Okay, so this is Kendrick Raphael. I put the pieces together because you were cutting in and out still. But so ACC, I said he was going to be top 3 or just lead the ACC. I don't even know. But he did get close. 65 yards short of 1,000. And like John said, he was 4th in the ACC. So I'm happy with it as the call. I think Kendrick Raphael being my guy from last season, I'm not happy with because he had 230 attempts with only 8 big time runs, which was not great, obviously. Less than 1 breakaway yard per attempt. He's going to SMU. Who knows if he'll be anything there. I don't know why he left Cal. It seems like they were more than happy to give him the ball a million times, even though he was terrible. But he left for some reason, so now he's got to convince another team to keep giving him the ball 200 times in a season, even though he's awful. So I wish him well. I'm glad that I kind of hit on that one, but I don't feel very proud of it.
Yeah, it was an efficiency thing for sure. So, I mean, it was a good shot at it. And yeah, I mean, going back to the Sadiq prediction on my end as well, like, I'll take it. Obviously, the 1,000 yards was very lofty, but looking at what the other receivers did there last year and the hype for Dante Moore, maybe in theory, I did expect it to a degree to at least be closer than what it was.
All right, can you guys hear me? All right, if I cut out again, I'm probably just gonna put myself in the background and do what I can. But I'm gonna say I kind of got this right. Jace Brown will outrank Zachariah Branch, Denzel Boston, Eugene Wilson, Antonio Williams, and Carnell Tate. I definitely got that part wrong at the end of the 26 season. So, yeah, the rest of those, I'm pretty happy with that list. And those guys were all ahead of him at the time as far as consensus Devy rankings.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the time we probably threw a mild at you, like you said. We weren't feeling those takes as being very lofty. So I still think yeah, I mean, obviously he didn't come out last year, right? So you can't put them next to each other in the same class. But I think once it's all said and done, Jace Brown has a good chance to be a day 2 pick still if he has a really good season with LSU. And that would put him, at least on par with Denzel Boston. Like Carnell Tate, that's probably out of the question at this point, being a top 10 NFL pick. But he could certainly be a day 2 pick. And if he is, his profile right now would put him above a guy like Denzel Boston. So I still think that one's possible, except for the Carnell Tate thing, obviously.
Right. Yeah, it's the Carnell Tate thing, right? The rest of those ones kind of made sense, I'm sure, at the time. But with including the Carnell Tate deal, which, I mean, I think we all liked him. I definitely liked him this last year. I can't remember exactly what rating I would have given that, but probably somewhere in that hot to fire range, I would have guessed. But yeah, that was very close to hitting.
All right. And then we had 3 that I would say were pretty damn good calls. And the first one, Andy had Ian Strong will be a day 2 NFL pick or will transfer to a better school by the end of the year. and I think that we can all agree that that pretty much happened. Maybe not the most crazy take. I mean, it was calling for, it was kind of mild, but still, Ian Strong was not getting any kind of like real love from the masses at this time last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he is in a better situation now with arguably the best college quarterback. I wouldn't argue it, but some people are arguing the best college quarterback throwing to him now. Um, but overall, I was disappointed in the season, and it wasn't his fault. Obviously, there was a lot of injuries that were holding Ian Strong back. But I can't be disappointed with the results at this point. Like, one, we got KJ Duff out of all of that, which I think it's great to have another elite wide receiver. I throw the word elite around, but like a really good wide receiver prospect out of all that injury and him missing time. But two, he gets to be the wide receiver one on a team with a really good quarterback, and hopefully, that translates to, day two. If a guy like Omar Cooper can get drafted in the first round, then there's certainly hope for somebody like Ian Strong to get it in the first round too, with a good season. So, um, I think overall, yes, bad season, but good outcome.
Yeah. And it is interesting, the last two players we talked about in hot takes from last year's podcast, Ian Strong and Jace Brown, were involved in a swap that Andy and I did this offseason and during a supplemental draft. We swapped Ian Strong for Jace Brown, and I just have so much Jace Brown. It made sense for me, and I think Andy kind of on the other end had a lot of Ian Strong. So I think it worked out for both of us. We'll see who ultimately ends up being the better wide receiver this year. I'm very intrigued with that comparison of those two. But yeah, no, I'm excited for Ian Strong as well this year. Certainly has that day two potential.
Yeah, that one's kind of a wait and see. We got to see what happens with Strong, but I think you're on the right path with the call. And then another one, you're definitely on the right path. A negative connotation to this one, but hey, it was accurate. Andy said Mekhi Hughes would be outproduced by Noah Whittington at Oregon. And I mean, we were all out on Mekhi Hughes, all three of us, but the whole being outproduced by Noah Whittington just takes it to another level, in my opinion. And so I wasn't strong enough, like I wasn't brave enough to say that, and yet Andy was. So I got to give him his flowers here. I love that call, and holy crap, was it accurate?
Yeah, that went way better than I could ever imagine. Because Mekhi Hughes was literally off the team in like 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. So, yeah, obviously it did not work out for Mekhi Hughes at Oregon. I don't think anybody predicted it was going to be to that extent. Yeah, obviously because of that, we got the emergence of De'Aaron Hill and Jordan Davison, which we love. But yeah, Mekhi Hughes, I think more people needed to be, attuned to the fact that he was just not that good. Unfortunately, the wake up call was louder and more jarring than even I had intended. But I'm glad that it was exposed and rather quickly, because that was a good one to victory lap, like after the first week of the season, essentially.
Absolutely. But then, in my opinion, at least, the best one to victory lap is Aaron's call. Darian Minsa will be a top five Devy QB by season's end. Congratulations. In my opinion, this is the definitely the best call of last year. I mean, I went back and listened. Originally, I was thinking that we called it Diablo, but we actually called it Fire. So we were not, we weren't going insane with it. We were just saying like, hey, this is, maybe not likely, but we do like Mensa. And then Mensa did what Mensa all sitting here going, man, I wish we had more Darian Mensa. So well, maybe not Aaron. I don't know. He might have a bunch of it. I have like one or two shares. So I love the call. Top five. I think even if he's not necessarily getting the love that he should, I believe that he is top five for everyone in consensus. Even though obviously a lot of people are trying to push other, especially like freshmen and stuff, but I'm not counting that. I feel like that's more, just freshman hype and stuff like that than actual. If you're talking about like who's actually produced and proven and that kind of things, I would say that Dairy Mints is in everyone's top five now.
Yes, well, happy that one worked out, as a guy transferring up to a higher level of competition and to kind of a questionable landing spot last year at Duke. Very happy that the Mensa take panned out. I liked his film, his flashes of production, and he definitely took that next step. And now he's going to an even better situation with one of the most dynamic wide receivers in all of college football. Very good transfer wide receiver two, Cooper Barkate, following him over to Miami, and then also some capable running backs, very capable defense, etc. So another team that should be contending for maybe a national championship. So Miami and Darian Mensah should get a lot of eyes on him and a lot of evaluators definitely looking at him early in the NFL draft this next season, I would think.
All right, Aaron, as the winner of last year's Hot Takes pod, I mean, I'm saying it, and Andy gave you some applause, so I'm assuming he agrees with me. But as the winner of last year's Hot Takes pod, you can choose who goes first.
Let's get John involved here, just because we don't know about the internet, situation. We got to get him while he's here. Give us a hot take.
That's true. That's very fair. All right, hopefully this will work. It's a player that I've been mentioning, quite a bit over the past few pods. It's not going to stop tonight. Trey.
And John cuts out, but I'm assuming Trey Richardson. Let's give his internet. He's got dial up. Let's give his dial up a minute to catch up here.
Take two.
Yeah, take 2 minutes. Maybe
Okay,
maybe
take two.
pause your video feed. But Trey Richardson from Louisville, John's favorite wide receiver this offseason, it appears. But go ahead and if you're with us, John.
Richardson will be a top 10 wide receiver in the 2027 NFL draft class.
Okay. Top 10 2027. I think that's fine. I'm trying to think of like what a top 10. That's probably day 2, right, Aaron? Wouldn't you say? How many? There's usually like 4 or 5 in the first round, and then maybe 5 or 6 in rounds 2 or 3.
Yeah, I would say between like 8 and 12, probably between day 1 and day 2 combined.
So, and that's not saying necessarily he'll be a day 2 pick. So, I'm gonna give it a mild. I'm sorry. I think that's very ambitious. I think he could still be like a 4th round pick with a good season and still be a top 10 wide receiver. Granted, there are a lot of receivers that I love in this class. I just think that, with how college football is today, somebody could get hurt and stay back another year. So there's probably a few things that could keep somebody who I would have above him back in college another year. I'm trying to read this paragraph John just threw on the screen, but I'm gonna say mild to hot because I don't love Trey Richardson, but I don't think top 10 is that really ambitious, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree that not super lofty. If you're saying like top 5, that's a much different conversation, right? Then that starts getting pretty hot fire. But it's top 10. I'll also say mild. Understanding that he will have some opportunities. John had typed out some rationale as well there. Some of his rationale being, despite being an older guy and transferring schools, 5 times over the last 4 seasons, so a lot of transfers there, and kind of a long, windy road to get there. He led Vanderbilt in receiving last year, his first time playing in the P4, so he's impressive there. And then now going for a good system that, they really target their wide receiver 1 heavily. So look at Chris Bell last year, look at Ja'Cory Brooks the year before. There is history and precedent there, so I think it totally makes sense. Like as a take, I think pretty good one. I think it's probably more safe though, rather than a true hot take. I will say I'm not the biggest Trey Richardson guy as far as believing in him as like a true Devy stud, but I think he can get there as like a top 10 type of wide receiver, sure, next year.
All right. Well, I think that probably leaves me going next since, again, Aaron is the reigning champion. So he gets the benefit of observing all of us before he has to drop a fire take. I'm going with one that Aaron teased earlier last time he was with us. Must have been 2 or 3 weeks ago. But it's a take that I've tweeted about in the offseason, and it is the Georgia Tech running game. Justice Haynes is obviously the transfer coming in from Michigan. I would think most consider him a top 5 Devy running back, definitely a top 3 running back in this next class. So obviously a lot of love for Justice Haynes. I am going to talk about why I don't think that he's as great, and it has to do with his teammate there at Georgia Tech, who is one of my FCS transfer guys from a year ago, Malachi Hosley, who played in the Ivy League in 2024 for Penn, I want to say. Penn, I believe. But anyway, so Hosley is the returning co-starter at running back, and I'm going to say that he outproduces Justice Haynes, not accounting for injury or anything like that. I just think if they both play the same amount of games, Hosley is going to outgain him in scrimmage yards and potentially outscore. I'll just say it since it's a hot take. I'll say he outscores him in fantasy points for 2026. And that's based on Hosley last year, who, let me see if I've got his... I should have had his rushing numbers, but he had 700 yards rushing, which, didn't lead the team, but that's because Haynes King ran for over 1,000 yards at the quarterback position. Big time run rate, over 13%. He is a capable wide receiver, or I shouldn't say wide receiver, but a receiver. 15 catches for 118 yards, which you cannot say about Justice Haynes. With Jamal Haynes, the other running back there, moving on, it's going to, I feel like, Hosley's role isn't really going to change much. And Justice Haynes, who I still think he's a good Devy running back. He's nobody can really match his big time playability. But Malachi Hosley's just too dependable, too efficient with the ball for him not to get, 10 carries a game or 10 touches a game, let's say. So that's where I kind of just feel, even if Justice Haynes is there, I just don't think that they're going to run him as much as really ever. Even at Michigan, despite he only played about half the season, but he was still getting giving up touches to Jordan Marshall. So I think it's going to be similar there, but honestly at a maybe even a more greater split favoring Hosley. Just because I think he's too good for the Georgia Tech to keep off the field.
Okay, Andy bringing some fire here. And so could you repeat one more time both the categories that you think Hosley outproduces Justice Haynes?
Scrimmage yards and fantasy points. PPR fantasy points.
Mm-hmm. That is going to be a fire take. Absolutely. That's up there. Right, that's real good. I'm not going to go Diablo only for the reason is we know that Justice Haynes did not declare for the NFL draft because probably some injury concerns, questions, and then of course the qualifier or the caveat of it needing to be PPR scoring, right? So the receptions, the receiving game has just not been something that Justice Haynes has really proven at the college level thus far. So knowing that Hosley, he's familiar with the system already, he's been making plays. He was a breakaway. Was standout with breakaway plays last year, and Hosley was also named to the Doak Walker preseason watch list, as well as Justice Haynes. Both of them were. I think there's a lot of just lofty expectations for that rushing game for Georgia Tech this upcoming year. So I get where you're coming from, but yeah, that's fire because Justice Haynes, for me, I mean, he is a top 3 back in this upcoming class with some known, receiving limitations, but there's just so many similarities to me to like a Kenneth Walker type of player. Just very much a good running back, not a perfect running back by any means, not like a perfect history or production profile, but enough there, athleticism wise, size wise, running ability, where I still think that Haynes should have a very productive season as more of that lead type of back. But man, yeah, you are putting some heat out there, absolutely. So I'll give you some credit there with fire take. And then John
All right,
also just chimed in too. Yeah, John said he will put his takes on the screen. He'll post his thoughts in the stream chat so he can still participate. He can still get the takes out there, just won't be cutting in and out kind of thing. So I think that sounds good, John. Yeah, I'll give my take, and I'm going to go with I hope it's a fun one to start with. And it is a freshman wide receiver. Brock Boyd will become a starter at the wide receiver position by the end of the season for Ohio State as a true freshman. He will be the second leading receiver for Ohio State in the second half of the season after Jeremiah Smith.
Okay. Let me just ask to add on to your take. Who will have more receiving yards at the end of the year, Brock Boyd or Chris Henry Jr.? Are you willing to say or no?
So for this hot take, this is saying Brock Boyd will be better than all the other, 5-star freshmen, Gearford,
Okay.
Chris Henry Jr. He will
Just
be better
clarify.
than Voisin. He'll be better than Innes. At least the second half of the year, he will outproduce all those other guys besides Jeremiah Smith, and he will
Got
be
it.
a starter. Yep.
Okay. So I've followed the news, obviously. It sounds like Chris Henry hasn't been awarded any sort of starting role. And I know Brock Boyd has gotten hype, but I don't think like he's been announced as a starter either, obviously. So I think this is definitely fire because it's a 3-star coming into perhaps the most loaded wide receiver room in college football when you're just looking from a pedigree standpoint, right? So I would say it's definitely fire. It's borderline Diablo. The only reason I'm not going to give it Diablo is because the reporting out of the camps has been so positive for Boyd to where I can't like say it's that crazy because everyone seems to love him so much. But I do think it's still fire because there's just so much talent from like a prospect standpoint at Ohio State for a 3-star guy to just get in there immediately and be the second receiver behind Jeremiah Smith, the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver prospect in the country right now, would be insane. So I'm going to give it fire. I'm going to hold off on Diablo just because all of the reporting has been so positive about Boyd. But he's a guy that I actually drafted him in one of my, I reached on it a little bit, but I took him in like the 5th or 6th round in a supplemental. But I just because the news has been so positive about him. But yeah, I think Chris Henry Jr., if he really face plants, that would be crazy too. But we've seen it happen with these 5-star receivers before. So, but yeah, sounds like John's giving it a fire as well.
Okay. I can't lie. I am a little bit disappointed that I did not get the Diablo there, but I get it. I mean, there's hype, but I mean, yeah, realizing that Chris Henry Jr., very touted early enrollee 5-star, 2 5-star enrollees ahead of Brock Boyd. They got Voisin starting. They got Brandon Innes starting, both, senior wide receivers with more experience. And yeah, Brock Boyd being a 3-star and yeah. But anyways, I get it. You can't award Diablos easily. And I do think that, yeah, Brock Boyd, he's got a ton of hype going in. Everybody's talking about him. Innes is talking about him. Jeremiah Smith says Brock Boyd reminds him of himself, especially with how he impressed right away as a early enrollee in spring camp. He was the first wide receiver for the freshman. And I think like the third or fourth fastest like guy ever to get their black stripe, and all that for Ohio State. Like he just has been impressing from the start, and there's just that steady drumbeat of him being a good player. So hopefully we see some production there out of Brock Boyd.
Absolutely. Well, if John is, punching away at the keyboard back there, I think we could listen to what he's got next. Otherwise, if he needs a minute, I can go. Oh, here we go. Malachi Toney, the wide receiver from Miami, has a lackluster sophomore season and falls out of the top 10 Devy wide receivers. I'm going to give this. I'll go first if that's all right, Aaron. Let me finish. Let's see. So he's saying 6.1 ADOT, 10.7 yards per reception. Just doesn't get me excited about anything. Mensa will push the ball downfield and already has rapport with Barcade, which is exactly what I was going to say. The thing that I don't necessarily agree with is that the C2C community is just going to say he's no longer a top 10 wide receiver. Now, I'm not disagreeing with that. I think that there's a chance that he might already not be a top 10 wide receiver for Devy. But I'm going to look at this as from the point of view of consensus. Consensus is going to view him as not a top 10 wide receiver. I will say that is definitely hot. And I'm going to not quite give it fire, but it's close. I'm going to say it's hot, comfortably in the hot, because I do think Barcade's going to be the better wide receiver with Mensa because he has that rapport. But I do think that, for what his role is in any offense, Malachi Toney's just still going to get a lot of touches. Whether or not they're good touches is kind of irrelevant, especially to the people who view him the way they view him already. Like if he gets 50 to 60 receptions and, 700 to 800 yards, they're not going to change their minds about him. Like he's just going to still be where they had him at this time in the off season a year from now. So I'm going to say it's hot just because I don't trust the consensus community to downgrade him enough, even if he has what I would consider a down year.
Okay, and I think that with that Malachi Toney take, I think it deserves a fire. I'll give a fire there, just because, I mean, he is a electric playmaking guy who, as a freshman, did a lot of great things there for Miami. A better quarterback, what we think is a better quarterback coming in, at least a better quarterback as far as gunslinging, potentially throwing down the field, expanding, the usage potentially there for Malachi Toney. Yeah, I see him progressing. He's not a perfect player right now, right? I do think that there's weaknesses within his profile. It's not a perfectly balanced profile by any means, but I think that for Malachi Toney just to fall out, yeah, I'm going to put it up there in the fire. Yeah. So, and I agree with Andy as far as I don't think the community is suddenly going to fade him, even if he has kind of a questionable second season, right? If he doesn't take that step forward, he's still going to have enough, explosive plays, intriguing scoring for fantasy formats and everything this year. So, yeah, I'll give you a fire.
I guess I have to revise it too. I said everything backwards. It should be fire because of that part, because he's saying they will drop out of the top 10, and I just don't think that that'll happen. But if it does, then it would be fire. So we're going to go ahead and award John a fire. Bold take. Well done, John.
Nice. And he is saying that his takes are only going to get hotter. So I'm intrigued now. And it's Andy's turn now for another hot take.
Oh man, I feel like this one's way too spicy for with 20 minutes left to go in the episode, but this is the only other one that I really felt was really bold and ready. I feel like my mild takes are going to close out the episode, unfortunately, but this one is crazy, I think. I am going to say at the end of the year, the best Devy quarterback from the state of Michigan is going to be a guy by the name of Alessio Milivojevic from Michigan State, who started 4 games last year. And this is more of an anti-Bryce Underwood take if you guys can't follow what's happening here. But Bryce Underwood, who started 13 games as a true freshman, had 11 passing touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Alessio Milivojevic, who started 4 games for the Michigan State Spartans, had 10 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, with an ADOT of around 9 yards, yards per attempt over about 7.5, 65% completion percentage, 73% adjusted completion percentage. All of these numbers are better than Bryce Underwood. Obviously, Bryce Underwood, they had a little bit more mobility, but Alessio Milivojevic wasn't that bad. So I just think that, I'm not going to sit here and sell you on Alessio or anything like that, but this is more of just an anti Bryce Underwood take. I think that he really is going to need to step up this season to prove himself as a top 10 or first round quarterback in the NFL draft. And I just don't see that happening. So I'm going to say that a guy that has kind of shown some things, at least, is going to be more valuable than he is at the end of the year.
Okay. And so you're just saying amongst the P4 Michigan teams, because you're not considering like Eastern Michigan, Noah Kim, Western Michigan, Brock Lowry, those types of guys included?
So the directional schools, if you want to go ahead and say that, they're also included. I do think I would put Alessio above Brock Lowry and Noah Kim, even though I think Noah Kim will probably be better as a CFF option. But yeah, sure, let's throw it all in there because I do like Alessio Milivojevic. I think he is underrated.
Wow.
And I like saying his name.
Yeah, I was going to say a very fun name. I am not familiar, not a guy I've been drafting. And so for those reasons, plus I think, yeah, that's just not on anybody's radar, I'm sure, right? With Bryce Underwood being the big name and expecting that step forward for him, that's got to be a Diablo take there. Nicely done. John says Battle of the Mids. Alessio with a 2.89 big time throw rate versus Bryce Underwood had a 4.18% rate. So actually a little bit higher. John says Diablo for sure. Yeah, I agree there. Diablo take there, Andy. But that's going to be fun and chaos to see that potentially unfold this season. Wow.
Yeah, I had to get my guy Alessio a mention here. But I think it's obvious to everyone listening this is probably more of an anti-Bryce Underwood take. But also, I feel like I don't want to get this reputation of being like the anti-hot guy. Like it did Mekhi Hughes last year. Now I've got Justice Haynes and Bryce Underwood. So I'm going to try and, for my last one, to at least do something positive.
Okay, I suppose that puts me up here. I'm going to go hot, and I like doing a tight end take every season, and we'll see if I get another one right. I'm not going to put any crazy yardage qualifications out for this take this year, because complete wild card within that system, but tight end Willie Rodriguez out of Kentucky will be a round 1 selection when he chooses to declare. So either 2027 or 2028, because he's eligible to stay one more year. Tight end Willie Rodriguez, round 1 tight end selection in the NFL draft.
So this is a player that I won't say that I wasn't like familiar with, but I just feel like his name started making the rounds recently among like the tight end Devy ranks. Never really somebody that I was considering in drafts because I didn't necessarily consider him to be, very CFF friendly. And maybe that was a Kentucky problem. They couldn't really figure out who their quarterback was last year with Cutter Boley or whoever was playing. But he did have that great game against Vanderbilt, 6 catches for 78 yards. So what was the take again? He's going to be a first-round pick or just a top 2?
Yep. First round pick in the NFL
whatever
draft.
year he comes out. Okay. I'm gonna say that's fire to Diablo. I'm gonna say it's got to be Diablo because he's just really not a guy that I have much faith or hope in up until like 2 or 3 days ago when I see his name starting to float around. So I want to say fire because it's tight ends and anything can really happen. And I want to save Diablo, so I'm gonna still say fire. He only had 300 yards last year. It takes a lot to just become a first round draft pick. I don't know anything about his athletics, so I'll say fire. Even though I'm kind of being a little bit fickle about it, but definitely something that would be crazy to see, whether it be this year or next year.
Okay, fair enough. And I don't have John's take in there quite yet in the chat. He's thinking, he's sampling it, tasting it, letting it settle a little bit, see how much kick there is. But it gives me the Diablo. Okay, split between Fire and Diablo. And so, okay, it's Kentucky, right? We think, okay, they've been, very poor as far as putting out offensive pass catchers the last, quite a few years, whatever the case is. Well, that's a different coaching staff now. So some of the coaching, it makes a big difference. There's a quarterback upgrade there, at least anticipated upgrade with Kenny Minchey. I get we haven't really seen Kenny Minchey. He's been impressing, though, this offseason. But it's not even about that. I mean, it's about Stein as well coming in there, installing a very much upgraded offensive system. I get it's the SEC level, but Will Stein's ability to maximize tight ends. I mean, looking at Oregon, look at last year, splitting some impressive usage out between the 2 Oregon tight ends. And I think Stein is just going to do some great things for the offense. But he was the one guy offensively that they felt they needed to retain. Like he's went on, I don't know if it was podcast or just interviewed with the media. And he's like, Willie Rodriguez was the guy that we needed to keep and by any means necessary, retain him for the Kentucky offense. And he definitely flashed this last season. He's just developing. Like these tight ends usually are not excellent in year 1 or 2. We see that big step usually in year 3 and or 4. So a young guy who's just going to be progressing here, hopefully. I see him just ready to truly break out. He's going to be a featured piece in the offense, which does not have proven wide receivers. They're going to be funneling so many targets to the tight end position. I'm really hoping and thinking Willie Rodriguez is going to be that breakout at the tight end position.
Fair enough. Well, that brings us to John, who did give you a Diablo, by the way. I mean, I feel like I probably should give you a Diablo, but I'm just going to hold it out. I want to wait for something crazy to really knock my socks off, if you will. But while we wait for John, hopefully he's typing away something. I guess, maybe I could go again. I don't know what John's doing. But my next one is a positive one, I think. So I'm gonna oh, here it is. Omarion Miller. This is John's take, by the way. Omarion Miller will be a top 3 wide receiver in the 2027 class. And as he's typing out his rationale, I'm just gonna go out and say this is Diablo for me. It doesn't matter like what else he says, to defend the position. I've got Jeremiah Smith. I've got Ryan Coleman-Williams. I've got whatever healthy wide receiver, steps up for Clemson. I've got potentially Cam Coleman or Ryan Wingo. All these guys I would have well above Omarion Miller. But having said that, it's not a player I just don't like, obviously. But John says he broke out with 196 yards against USC in his freshman year, but only ran 141 routes that season compared to 500 for the other receivers in the offense. Mower the same in year 2, only running 51 total routes before breaking his leg, but he had 145 yards in the only game of the season in which he ran the most of the routes. He finally got his actual shot in year 3, albeit on a terrible team that only threw for 2,400 yards, but he led the team with 33% market share. Talking about Colorado, obviously, and 808 of those, with 808 of those 2,400 yards, along with 8 of the 17 total touchdowns. So yeah, really good dominator for him over there at Colorado, and he's moving to Arizona State, which people are projecting to be this big CFF powerhouse with Cutter Bowley. I don't know if I see it, but I do like Omarion Miller. I think that he, when healthy, is going to be very good. But I'm going to give it Diablo because I just don't think there's a chance that he is a top 3 wide receiver next year. There's just too many good receivers in this class for anyone that's outside the top 5 right now to break into it, in my opinion.
Man, I like Amari Miller, but this is Diablo as well. Yeah, I will say that. And he is just outside of my top 10 wide receivers for this upcoming draft class. And not far outside of it. I believe he's 11 for me out of the eligible guys. And not all of them will declare, right? We might see a guy such as a Charlie Becker stay one more season in college or go down the list. There's a couple guys who could stay another year. Bryant Wesco, TJ Moore. So taking that into consideration, that puts him up maybe even closer to 7, 8, 9. But with the injury history, with the potential sharing of targets within that Arizona State offense, I think Omarion Miller will get his, but there's just going to be some questions medically with his profile, with some missed times, past knee injuries, etc., that may make both the industry and the NFL a little bit wary about drafting him in the first round and truly investing in him without concern. So I'm thinking it's Diablo, but I actually, like Andy was teetering between Diablo and Fire for mine. I am on the fence. I will say that. But Marion Miller, top 3. If it would have been top 5, I'd say it's fairly mild or maybe getting into a little bit of hot. But top 3, man. I mean, look at the top guys: Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman, Ryan Williams, or if you want to say you think of Bryant Wesco or Nick Marsh or Juice Robinson or somebody else up there. Yeah, so I know John was going for the heat there, right? And I think he delivered. I do. So we'll see. That's going to be a hard one to come true, but time will tell. If you guys remember very end of last season, I said Omarion Miller is my sleeper if he declares right for the draft. So I was anticipating maybe there was a chance that he would just come out early and he was going to be my guy, my sleeper. And then obviously he's stayed in college now, transferred to Arizona State. And then now John is trying to take him from me as a top 3 wide receiver. Crazy times.
Crazy indeed. And we are about 5 minutes left. So, we've got mine and one more from Aaron here, so we'll get through these here. But I'm going to do a positive one, like I said earlier, and it's going to be a quarterback coming back from injury, and that's Syracuse quarterback Steve Angeli. I'm going to say Steve Angeli by the end of the season is, and I don't know how spicy I want to get it, because right now, if you look at mock draft database, he is an undrafted free agent, but assuming Steve Angeli stays healthy, I think he can be a first-round draft pick, honestly. I think his numbers prove that. I just need to see him put in a full season against ACC, which isn't a crazy, daunting schedule. Yeah, you're going to play a few tough teams. But if he does what we've seen him do for 3 seasons, albeit in either a backup role at Notre Dame or only playing 3.5 games last year at Syracuse, I think he could be in the first round draft pick conversation if he continues his efficiency and does all the things that we've seen him do so far. So this is like he's never going to be like in the top 5, but maybe this is a team that trades up into the back end of the first round to get a guy like Steve Angeli if he puts in another full season and does what he's done. So that'll be it. I'll say he's a back end first round draft pick.
Wow, Andy coming with some heat. I'll say, and I like Angeli. I actually roster him in half of my C2C leagues. And John told me, he's dead, right? Angeli is no longer a thing. I don't know if I'll go that far, but as far as like first round draft capital, man, that's hot. I'm gonna go with Diablo. Yeah, I have to. Just coming off of that very significant Achilles tear injury, and just the issues that are going to be there for him to consistently produce in a Syracuse offense that has lost their top wide receivers. Gill is gone. Jonte Cook is gone. Their freshman, borderline 5-star guy, Torres Achilles as well this offseason. Like, they're pretty depleted there. Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith within that system, and maybe it's the system that holds him back. Maybe it's the injury. Maybe it's some limitations himself. But Angeli, that's Diablo. And I'll go to John's comment here. Andy calling him Steve Angel E makes me want to call it Diablo just because.
I've only seen that word written, and I'm also from the UP of Michigan. We don't talk right up there. But especially if it's like some sort of Italian. I shouldn't say that because there's so many Italians in the UP. But yeah, I apologize to Steve. I'm not even going to say his name anymore because now I'm embarrassed that I said it wrong.
I think it's Angeli. I don't know. I am always open to corrections with pronunciations. If anybody knows, right, any listeners actually know how he prefers it. And I just don't watch enough. Yeah, but Angeli, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Angeli?
Angeli.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, okay, every year I like to do, this is not going to be my take that I go out with, but maybe I'll do 2 for 1 type of thing. I'm feeling really generous to the listeners, I guess. But I always have some sort of quarterback take that I like to throw out there, and I'll go similar to Andy, predicting a first-round draft capital for a guy who is definitely way outside of most people's radar, at least for projections for the first round, and that's Connor Wigman. Connor Wigman, Houston quarterback, sneaks his way into the first round of the 2027 NFL Draft. And so I'll wait to see the responses here between John, between Andy.
Okay, I'm sure but John is punching away. Go ahead.
I just think that Wigman, when you look at the totality of his profile, it's not perfect, right? There's a few, too many interceptions, but it's not bad. It's a doable rate. You can get away with that. And as far as like pushing the ball downfield, I think that takes his step forward this year. He has Amari Thomas. He has some rapport there now with the guys at Houston. I think they have a doable schedule. Everything lining up a second year in the system for it to be very productive. He's shown it on the ground as far as rushing ability to score touchdowns that way to get yards. He has the size, right? He has the height. He has the arm strength and talent. Former baseball player, 5-star recruit who played and won games and put up some nice stats in limited sample sizes at Texas A&M. Yeah, he's got a little injury history, but 2 seasons of full health should very much endear himself more so to NFL evaluators, scouts, etc. So that's my plea. That's my rationale. I probably should have had you guys rate it before I went on that tirade, but what do you think?
So we're saying first round for him. I think that's got to be a Diablo take. And just because of what we've seen so far, I mean, he's been a starter essentially for 4 seasons, right? The only thing that I can confidently say is that he's a great running quarterback. He's got injury problems every year, basically, except for last year. He's got turnover problems. He's got a big-time throw rate problem. He doesn't necessarily have an ADOT problem, but he does have a completion percentage problem, which he kind of improved on last year, but it's still not great. I think that the turnover-worthy throw rate is too high. Like I said, the interceptions are too high. The turnovers in general are too high. he would really need to have to turn it around big time for that to happen. So I will give it Diablo, but I do think that he does have the opportunity, right? Because he does have such a good wide receiver with Amari Thomas. He does now have comfortability in this offense in year two. It's the Big 12. You know, he's a fifth year guy. I think that all those things kind of play into his favor where he could play some bully ball potentially. And if that's the case, maybe he does, climb up some draft boards and get into the first round. I don't see it happening, so that's why I'm giving it Diablo, but I guess it's not completely out of the realm, so I'm not going to call you crazy or anything.
Okay, and John says he loves Wigman, was one of the highest on him at some point, but this has to be Diablo. Yes, senior QB who's never hit the big time throw rate and intended air yard thresholds, even at a somewhat lower level. I get that, but I am projecting him to take that next step. He's close in those categories and definitely has a lot of things going his way. I said that I wasn't going to go out on that one, but I'm glad that Andy drew me back into some quarterback hot takes. I'm going to go with a wide receiver one because I've been throwing it out, tight end and, now quarterback. I guess I did the wide receiver for Brock Boyd earlier, but I'm going to go and finish with Trey Spivey, wide receiver for Arizona. He will be a top 7 wide receiver in the 2027 class.
Sorry, I got to unmute myself.
Dead air.
I don't.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I know. I apologize. This is a name that popped up like out of nowhere, seemingly, towards the beginning of the offseason. I know that he, recorded some stats last year. That's about all I can say. In his third year in college, on his second team, he almost got 400 yards receiving. Even if he, by some miracle, records over 1,000 yards at Arizona with Noah, what is it? Fafita, he's still the quarterback with Fafita throwing him the ball. I still wouldn't even put him anywhere near my top 10. And you're saying top 7 for this following draft class? He's got the size, right? 6'4", 213. But it doesn't matter. I feel like he had 7 touchdowns. I think that's probably what's propping people up for him, but obviously touchdowns aren't sticky. He's not going to – every third catch isn't going to be a touchdown this year, guys. I hate to be the one to tell you. But, yeah, I'm out on Spivey. I think that there's probably better options in that offense at wide receiver than him. And like I said, even if he has a 1,000-yard season this year, I still am not putting him in my top 10. So I got to put. I guess that would be Diablo then for me.
Diablo. John says Gabe Davis says hi and Diablo. He very well could be that. I'm not saying he's going to be a great NFL player. I'm really not. I'm just saying he's going to be a top 7 wide receiver. And definitely the size, the athleticism. After the catch, he's great. Half his yards last year came after the catch as a 6'4", 210-plus pound wide receiver. And doing that work with the ball in his hands reminds me a lot of Travis Hunter, actually, in a lot of ways. And I'm not even saying like, that's a totally different argument and this and that. Travis Hunter also split time at the cornerback position. NFL team didn't really know how they were going to utilize him. Still probably don't know how to really utilize him right. But Spivey reminds me of that type of play style. Pretty dominant with the ball in his hands, but has some size too. John says his PPR points per touch are wild, so can't hate too much. And that's, I think, my big thing with him too. Like Andy said, he's not going to score every 3 times he touches the ball, or every third touch is not going to be a touchdown. But even if, the guy's just a scoring machine. Like every time he touches the ball, he's going to break a play to potentially score. that's hyperbole, right? That's exaggeration. The guy is just so dynamic. He is one of those Omar Cooper Jr. types where it just takes years for them to really figure it out. And I don't know if Omar Cooper Jr. is going to hit at the NFL level. He's not off to the most strong start, right, this offseason. But I think those types of players who are those late breakouts, who can bust at somewhat of a high rate, still can be very notable breakout players late in college careers, get early round draft capital, and be top 7 types of players. So I'll put my name on Spivey, have him in a bunch of leagues, and am very excited for the season. And then there was one more. John's take, if he has one for us. Okay. Demon June will be a top 5 running back in Devy by the end of the season. Whew. A lot of Diablo tonight, guys. And I'm not disappointed at all. Maybe I sounded disappointed with that, but that's fun. But that's bold, and that's Diablo. Demon June, top 5 Devy running back.
Yeah, I think we pushed ourselves to this point, unfortunately. I don't know why, but whenever we get like a mild take, we take it as like a personal indictment on our hot takes. But that's not necessarily the case, obviously. But I will say that this running back crop of, the Devy running backs is like kind of an open race right now. So I am going to give him a fire, but I'm not going to give him a Diablo just because Demon June is a guy I like. He only kind of had like a few weeks last year where Bill Belichick trusted him with more than 10 carries. But every time that he did get the ball, he was amazing. So hopefully he gets a much more expanded role this year. And if that's the case, then absolutely, I think that he's going to be a top 10 Devy running back for sure. Certainly could be top 5. And right now, John's coming in. He says 5'11", 215 pounds, ideal running back size. June easily led the UNC backfield as a true freshman. Named to the Doak Walker watch list. New offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino is installing a more exciting offense. Yeah, and I can't remember who the running back was last year that I kind of liked on that team. I think he's like third string for NC State now. But
is it Gauss? Davion Gauss or something?
Davion Gauss. I thought that he was going to be the guy, and then Demon June just sort of, came out of nowhere and as a true freshman was phenomenal. So I'm going to maybe fire's even a little bit too spicy. Maybe this is more just a hot take, honestly, because he had such a good freshman season. I do think he's underrated right now. So I'm going to actually just say it's a hot take. I'm going to say this is a good take by John, but it's not too crazy in my opinion.
See, I just disagree. I think it is crazy to me. And I guess the reason for that being, I didn't think that he had that good of a season. And I'm not trying to be, mean or anything, but he had 2 good games. And one of them was against a super low, opponent, nothing opponent. So I don't think that Demon June is some sort of great back by any means. I think he's going to have some CFF production. I think there's going to be merit to wanting to like him this season, but I don't see it athleticism-wise. There's not a lot of strong testing there from what I've seen on the field. I think there's a little bit of athletic concerns. I get he's broken a couple big plays, but consistently doing that, I get it's ACC, so maybe a little easier to do so at that level. He should be a productive player, but top 5 to me, just bold, wild. He reminds me of Jaden Ott. Jaden Ott had a couple of really big games, but otherwise, he had a 200-some yard game, I want to say, as a freshman. And then, a couple other decent games against UC Davis and UNLV. Reminds me totally of that, where that skews his whole entire freshman season of production. You're like, wow, this guy's special. It's no, the guy was averaging 3 yards per carry for every other opponent besides those weak ones. So reminds me a little bit of that. I could be wrong, and there's revisiting this potentially next year with the Demon June take. But I'm impressed, guys. The amount of heat. I'm going to need to drink some milk, wash my mouth out. I don't know how I'm going to get this heat off of me.
Yeah, I'm going to draw the line for myself here. I don't think I need to say anything else. There are obviously some FCS players I like, but I think that I've already, given my thoughts on all those players. No need to like rehash anything, but I would agree. I think we spilled some heat here. It's unfortunate that John wasn't able to join us vocally. I know that that's killing him inside, but I think at the end of the day, this was fun, and it's going to be even more fun when we look back a year from now and see which one of these, which ones of these hit and which ones didn't. And maybe the if we miss on all of these, we'll kind of get reeled back into earth to stop trying to be so crazy with these takes and get back to some more mild, some more a little bit hot takes, those are still fun. But we all have to one up each other every now and again.
Right. And there were 3 takes that I did not get to on this podcast tonight, and we're not going to prolong it. I'm not going to give them out. They were actually 3 freshman takes. I already put one out there in Brock Boyd, so believe it or not, I had 3 more freshman-related ones that I was interested in maybe putting out there. We don't have the time for it, so that can be a future one. Maybe it's next year's list, right? Or maybe we do something later on in the season. But either way, there's some more heat to be had in the future on this podcast. Normally we're not so hot takey, but this stuff is fun, and the hit rates on these types of bold proclamations is not high. Just so everybody knows, we're not saying this stuff's guaranteed or this stuff's likely. But I see John is trying to join back to maybe give us some words of wisdom, or maybe not. I don't know if I can hear him. But anyways,
I can hear myself.
I think, yeah, I think we did a good job here, bringing the heat, bringing some fun for the podcast. That's all I got tonight. But thank you, everybody, listening in to the Devy Devotional as always.
So long.
Cashing
We're cashing out. Hit the buttons, John.
He wants to hear more hot takes.
Oh, man. Hopefully this all gets edited out. No.
We don't give in to peer pressure, John.
John, you can't hold us hostage like this on live YouTube stream. Felix is probably still watching. He's laughing right now at us. John, please.
What did he say? John got kicked out from Riverside. Oof. Well.
So if he's kicked out from Riverside, we can't end the stream, right? Do we just all...
Do we leave?
If we all leave, it's not going to get uploaded to the cloud. Sorry if anyone is actually watching this on YouTube. Sounds like John's problem, right? Should I text him?
Yeah.
I don't know what he wants us to do.
I'll message him for sure.
All right.
Just message him. We'll see what the guy says.
Well, this is probably all going to get edited out. But since we're still online, and I don't know if we should end the stream, I'm just going to throw out another flag plant here. Braden Atkinson, who is an FCS transfer to Oregon State, broke a ton of records as a true freshman at Mercer last year. I think that he could potentially win the job over a guy like, I think Malik Murphy is kind of the incumbent there. Nobody's really excited about Malik Murphy. And if he continues to progress, I think that's a guy who I could see as a transfer portal candidate in 2027, potentially playing for a top 25 team next year.
Okay.
All right.
That's interesting.
And with that,
John can let us go.
John says we can just leave. So thanks, everybody. So long.